All right, we're live here at the station of decapitation without your head. I'm Nasty Neil, and I'm joined by Nick Zaino. We're going to be talking about his music. It's very good to have you here.
Hey, yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, for people who don't know, you created the two songs, A Guy Like Smash and Long Dead for End Zone 2, which I'm heavily involved in. And so, how did you get involved in End Zone 2?
Well, if I remember correctly, it was very happenstance that I posted on Facebook uh, something like life goal, write a song for a horror movie, and then like a short time later, I got an instant message from Michael J. Epstein, said, "Hey, funny you should post that. We happen to be making a movie we're looking for a song for. We think you might be able to write something." So I started working with him and trying to figure out what they would want, and it just sort of went from there. Just sort of wrote something to order, which I hadn't really ever done before. So it was a lot of fun to work within those sort of parameters.
Yeah, and it's a very specific like style that we were going for the movie. So like how did he pitch that to you? Like this is, what we want.
I forget, he had a list of 3 or 4 like 70s singer-songwriter names that he wanted me to shoot for, and I submitted a couple of things that didn't quite work. And then I decided I mostly write on guitar, and to sit down at a piano and see if that would sort of change the way the song would come out. And it did change it greatly. I'd been listening to a lot of Randy Newman and Warren Zevon, but I knew he wanted something. Man, I was just looking back through the emails. I didn't find the references. It had to be something sort of very much of its time, of very much like mid 70s sort of. I don't want to say cheesy, but sort of uh, something that sounded sort of dated, something that would be very much of the genre at that time. So I started doing. I came up with a sort of bouncy kind of riff for it and tried to write lyrics that would be using football as a metaphor for hope. I tried to sort of figure the person writing this wouldn't necessarily think they're writing a football song. Like they'd be incapable of just writing a song about football. They would have to use it as a metaphor for something, even if that metaphor is really messy and on the nose, and it just sort of winds up uh, becoming a little bit overly sincere. Maybe, I don't know if that makes sense. As
Yeah. Both songs are perfect in my opinion because a guy like Smash feels like a song. We were saying it's like written by someone who maybe not even watch football. I also think it would be like maybe they didn't even know it's like for a horror movie, and
Yeah,
that happens so often in movies from a certain era. And I actually love that. It was something me and Michael like you had we're on the same page with like um the end song from My Bloody Valentine. The theme from The Mutilator is completely out of place, and which
right.
makes it amazing, I think.
Well, there's also Long Dead came from watching like the folk horror stuff that couldn't decide whether it couldn't really commit to being horror in the late 60s, early 70s. And that had a lot of really earnest folk music with like pipes and French horns. It was more sort of brooding. I had already written Smash, and that had already, but we were already sort of working on that. And then Long Dead, I wrote as sort of an exercise, like, could I write this kind of uh, overly earnest folk song with like the gentle arpeggiation uh, and that those pipes, or I can't remember whether I used a French horn sound on the keyboard or pipes, but yeah, that was a lot of 3 a.m. watching horror movie inspiration.
Yeah.
This
What's your history? I don't want to interrupt you. Sorry. What's your history with Michael and Sophia? Like, how did you know them?
Well, I'm based in Boston, and they were based here for a very long time. And I knew them from around the music scene. They used to host an open mic at the Arts at the Armory that I would show up at a lot. And when I started my Department of Tangents podcast years ago, I interviewed them for that. Uh, so that's how I got to know them. But I mean, if you're doing any sort of art in Boston, while they were here, especially, I think you would run across them because they were just, everywhere, very ambitious, sort of doing everything, doing video, doing movies, doing music. It seems like they're never without a project to work on. Usually, probably two or three or four or five.
Yeah, it's weird. I live in Massachusetts, too. I'm in the Cape, but I met Michael briefly before they moved out to LA, but I didn't meet Sophia till after they moved to LA. So that's very odd. But, and now we've done stuff together. But, so how much did you know about the movies? I know you obviously knew there was like football involved. Like, how much did you know about End Zone 2?
Not a ton, and I think that was by design. I think Michael might have said at some point that he didn't want to describe it too much. The information that I had would be enough to write the song in the spirit that it needed to be written in, as sort of a guy who doesn't necessarily know what he's writing for. Uh, I only actually saw the movie late last year, after it had been to a couple of festivals. So it was fun to see how the music wound up in there. I knew that it was about football. He explained the premise of Smash and there being two actors who had played Smash, sort of vying for the role. I did not know it was two movies. I only learned that sort
Oh,
of
okay.
later on in the process, because I thought it was all sort of built into one.
Right. Yeah. I think early on the idea it changed really quickly early on, but originally like there was the idea we would film the End Zone 2 stuff to like put into Smash, but then I think early on they're like, well, if we're gonna bother doing that, we might as well just make the whole movie. It's probably cost wise, if you're gonna rent the cabin and stuff, you might as well just film the whole movie.
Yeah, I think it works well. It's going to be interesting with streaming distribution whenever that happens, if people find both movies together, or if they I I'm kind of amused if somebody were to say just find End Zone 2 first and not know about Once and Future Smash and find that later. Like, how many people would take that movie sort of seriously as, well, I mean, it is a real movie, but
Right.
it's also the
Yeah, they
concept.
think it's like this is a movie that we found and restored from 1970, and then you'd be like, "Hey, let me go and check out this documentary about it," and then
Yeah, because it's fairly spot on. As, I don't know, it's not a parody really. It's
no,
it's a movie in that genre
hmm
that was created as a vehicle for another movie. So how do you describe what End Zone 2 is?
yeah, because like you said, it's not a parody, so there's not you're not like none of it's like really winking at the camera. There's
Yeah.
stuff in the dialogue which references movies that come after,
Mhm.
but it's done in a way where I think if you don't know, you just like, oh, that's interesting, whatever. But it's never like jokey, look like at the camera or anything.
Yeah. Like if I came across this, if I came across that on its own on Tubi, I would not question that as a horror movie.
Yeah, that's interesting because so when I always thought we should have showed End Zone 2 first at the festivals and then the Once and Future Smash. But actually, after we went to the festivals and I watched them both, I think it is the right order. We show the Once and Future Smash, then End Zone 2.
Mm-hmm.
But we have talked a little bit off air and stuff about, like what you just said, when if after they're out there, they won't be together on the Blu-ray, which you can get at withoutyourhead.com/touchdown. That'll be out later, but you can help the
Mm-hmm.
Kickstarter. Obviously, then you can watch them together. But like you said, on Tubi or something, people probably discover them separately, and it'll be up to them which order they watch them, or if they only watch one, and
Uh-huh.
it'll be very weird. It'll be a completely different experience than going to a festival and watching them back to back.
Well, and you can also get more mileage out of that because there's oh, you might know there. What was the movie that was also made around Boston somewhere, a little bit north of Boston? A Winter Beast. Do you remember
Oh,
that
I
one?
don't know that one. No.
They made it over a period of like 16 years,
Oh, wow.
and sometimes just whenever they got the money, they would get a camera and shoot it. So the footage looks wildly different from scene to scene. The actors are noticeably older, sometimes within a scene. Like you'll pan from one guy from away from somebody and then pan back to them and they're like 10 years older, but trying to look exactly that. They tried to match it all up. But so you could do so you could this could be the gift that keeps on giving. There could be so much more End Zone footage that shows up later uh, on a lark.
Yeah, yeah. No, well, we've talked. Depending on the success, possibly there could be more of these.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know if Michael and Sophia are into that, unless someone comes in with a lot of money to make part 3 or maybe
Right.
the original or whatever. So
Well,
when
this,
you did, oh, go on, sorry.
I was just going to say, and this was a pandemic project as well, so I'm sure they're happy. Oh, my cat's about to make a cameo.
That's
Sorry.
all right. We almost always have an animal making an appearance.
Yeah. But
Hello.
I'd assume that Mike and Sophia are thankful to be able to move on to something else, just because it's been the time spent working on this has been so much expanded by the pandemic.
Yeah, we filmed End Zone 2 at the end of 2019, and then we filmed the majority of Smash, the stuff in the convention in 2020, like in February. It was literally like a week or two before everything shut down, and then we didn't know like how we were going to finish it. It really changed everything because the idea was after Mad Monster, we were going to go to Texas Frightmare and film some more stuff there, and then everything got shut down, so it changed how we were going to finish the movie.
It did allow you to interview a few more people and put
Yes.
a little bit more into it, though, right? So there was something. It wasn't all bad.
No, so the original idea was we're going to film more people at other conventions and put them in, but then the workaround was once they could actually meet people. The people I was setting up, we had them. They would film them out in L.A. and put them in the movie, and that stuff is all amazing. So it worked out well, I think. So when you first saw End Zone 2 and you hear a guy like Smash during the scene with Smash and Dahlia DeMont, what did you think of that scene? Because I've seen the scene without the score, and then with the score, it is a much different feeling.
Oh, you mean the sorry,
It's all right.
trying to keep my cat from flashing the camera here. You mean the karaoke scene, that one?
Well, no, that's in Smash, but I mean, we'll get to that too. But in End Zone 2,
right.
there's a kill when the song plays.
Yeah. Oh, that was a thrill for me to see, and there was also. Oh, my cat just unplugged my camera. She gets a little
like
aggressive
enough of this guy
about that kind of stuff. And yeah, that was a lot of fun to see, and I think you guys played with that a little bit so that it repeats a phrase from the song in there. I'm trying to picture it, to get it in my head now. But yeah, it was an honor to see something I wrote. For a minute, you sort of forget, oh yeah, I wrote the song that's playing right now
Yeah.
in this.
Is that you singing?
Yeah,
Oh, cool. I actually didn't know that.
I tried to I tried to. I don't know why I made this choice. It sounds a little like me doing a Leon Redbone impression, and it just seemed like that would work. I don't know why. I can't. I'm being Emma's being extremely rude right now. First she unplugged my camera, now she's swatting my face with her tail. And I'm just gonna
I love it. Yeah.
I'm just gonna
What's her name, by the way? The cat.
that is Emma.
Emma. All right.
I'm just gonna pretend like I'm a bad weather reporter, the guy that they send out during the rainstorm.
I
And
love it.
Emma is the rainstorm. Emma, okay, we're gonna deal with this.
So, since you mentioned the karaoke scene, so I can't even remember. I have it on my phone somewhere. Recorded when we actually filmed the karaoke scene. I can't remember the original song, the real song they were singing, but it really works in the movie when they put in a guy like Smash. And
Well,
so,
Mike did send me footage of that of the two leads with lyric sheets singing the song, which was like sure not terribly long after I sent him what was the finished product on my side. So it was fun to see that as well. Like that this thing is actually, especially since a lot of it was just recorded in this basement during the pandemic, which I did not leave. Like, oh hey, this song somehow is out in the greater world somewhere. There is still a greater world out there somewhere. Should I ever be able to leave the house again?
so you didn't get to see it with an audience either movie.
No, I've not got to see it with an audience. I do have a movie screen in front of me right now, and this is my basement workspace, and I have a projector. So I watched it on a somewhat big screen here. This is my like Omega Man like existence, watching Woodstock on the screen while everything else is shut down.
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, we didn't get a Boston screening. We played like many other places, but we didn't play anywhere in Boston, unfortunately.
Well, I'm hoping it comes here. There are some places around where it might be a, a good fit.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, yeah, like Brattle or Coolidge, but yeah, there'd be some good places. If it would be a really fun time to watch it with, because I know a lot of my friends in Boston and their friends in Boston have not seen it yet. So,
Well, there's the Salem Horror Fest coming up
hmm
in a couple months too, but that's probably too late to get in there. But they've got a great vibe to that.
yeah, yeah, I've never been to that. I've heard good things. I don't know why I've never been out to it, but
Yeah, it's very well curated. It's a fun time, and they do it now in April, I think, instead of around, because they used to do it around October. But Salem in October is
yeah,
an
it's
absolutely insane
yeah.
place.
It's not. It's honestly, for anyone who wants to go to Salem, maybe if you want to experience one time like Halloween in Salem, or I would recommend going to Salem outside of Halloween. I think it's a for me it's a better experience.
Yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff there. Going to Salem during Halloween it's kind of like the closest thing we have to Times Square on New Year's Eve, I think. It's just a
Yeah, it's a
lot of
giant
people.
mass of people. Yeah,
Yeah.
not necessarily people I want to be around. No offense to them, but but, yeah,
Yeah, I mean there are Halloween is popular enough that there are subsets now. It's not necessarily as like-minded or homogenous a group as it may have been, much as Comic Cons have become, I guess.
right, yeah. So Catherine Capozzi, who scored End Zone 2. Are you familiar with her, or do you also know her from Boston area? Uh-oh, he froze up on me.
Oh, am I back?
Yeah, you're back now.
Am I? Okay. You froze up just before that as well. What was
Oh,
you're talking about?
Catherine
Catherine?
Catherine Capazzi. Yeah, were you familiar with her? Do you know her from the Boston area as well?
Yeah, I mean, we met actually at Mike and Sophia's open mic at Arts at the Armory in Somerville. I think that's the first time we met, and I think we both have. Now I'm forgetting. We both have aliases for the movie that she's read, and I forget what I am. I was trying to look it up just before that, but we both have this. The songs are credited under aliases, and I was actually trying to come up with a bio for the songwriter that wrote a guy like Smash, that helped me
That's
sort of get into the mindset of that.
Yeah, that's very fun. Did you do an interview as the character or anything? Not to spoil
No,
anything.
no, I didn't. There was talk of it, but I think uh, time sort of ran out at some point. But it would have been fun. But I think Mike and I also talked a little bit about background. It was never a serious discussion. I don't think it was just coming up with the goofiest. But I think that the idea, the last idea that I heard was that I would be the son of the guy who wrote the music, not actually the guy, if they were
Right.
to interview me as that. So yeah, it's a fun sort of exercise to write as somebody else or to come up with a completely different character. I mean, I had done the first time I played piano in public was shortly before the pandemic. I did a Harry Nilsson tribute show. I played 3 songs, and I I tried to dress up like Harry Nilsson might have. So I got the beige corduroy coat and the like a the cabbie cap and everything. So that all went into to whoever this guy would have been. Like I picture this guy playing dressed up and all of that stuff. The 70s style. Uh, the singer songwriter who maybe would have been had a tryout with Asylum Records early on and didn't quite make it, something like that.
So I also you mentioned that you also cover stand-ups,
Yes.
comedy in Boston, which is very interesting. So it's music and stand-up.
Mhm.
How did you get involved in that?
Uh, I became a writer just out of college. I wrote for the campus magazine. I went to college in Buffalo, New York, and started covering stand up for the Buffalo News around 1997. Then, when I moved to Boston around a few months after that, I started covering it for Stuff at Night and the Boston Phoenix, both of which are gone now, unfortunately. And then I moved on to doing a weekly column for the Boston Globe in 2001, and I've been covering comedy for the Boston Globe ever since then.
What are some of the best places in your opinion to watch stand-up comedy in Boston? And maybe some like hidden gems.
Well, I mean, it's a bit lazy for me because I live in Lynn, but in Beverly, just about 20 minutes away, they've done some really great things with the Off Cabot, which is what Nine Wallace used to be. Um, they've made that a really nice, intimate comedy room. I'm hoping that the comedy studio is coming back. That was my haunt or my hangout for years. The third floor of the Hong Kong restaurant uh, in Cambridge. They've got another space that they're still trying to get open, which I think is going to open up later, uh, later in maybe in the summer. There are a lot of clubs around now. Laugh Boston's a big club. uh, yeah, on the Seaport. Improv Asylum, if you like improv, does a really great job with their main stage show. I mean that it's a really solid, dependable show, as dependable as improv can really get. Uh, and there are a lot of smaller one night rooms out there now, like the Hideout, uh, the Laugh Giraffe in Union Square. There are a lot of little rooms where you can go see people sort of on their way up, just sort of getting things together.
Mm-hmm. For you, like, do you just like cover it all? So, do you like established acts, and then which is more fun for you? Like, see an established act to see someone new starting out? I think you froze up on me again.
What their voice, because it can take a while, but it can also click very quickly. I mean, you can see somebody for years, and then over the course of a couple months, they figure something out, and all of a sudden, it's sort of there. There are also people who are established headliners for a decade or more now that I saw sort of starting out. So in my head, I'm like, oh right, these aren't still the new people. These are these are people who've been doing this and headlining for a decade. You just remember seeing them in the smaller clubs, so you've got to remember they're the established acts around here now. There are a lot of people I love to see perform, uh, that are still in Boston. I mean, there's the whole dynamic of Boston being not an industry city necessarily, so people develop here and move on elsewhere. Uh, but we've had a lot of people who stayed, and a lot of people like from the '80s boom scene. Like I love to see Tony V. He's one of my favorites, and he's like one of the godfathers of the scene. And I don't know if you don't like Tony V, I don't know what to do for you as a human being. Uh, but Lamont Price, I love watching him play. Kathy Ferris and Kelly McFarland. Uh, there are a lot of locals that I love to see, but the Boston Globe has also allowed me to interview some legends along the way, and I have a few great stories about that, like being able to sit in Carl Reiner's living room
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
in Beverly Hills, and George Shapiro, his manager, who was also Seinfeld's manager and was Andy Kaufman's manager, was also sitting on the couch during that interview, and Reiner had me take out my wallet, and I don't know what the impulse was, but Reiner starts going through my wallet and saying, "You've got so much stuff in here. This is so stupid. If you lose it," and Shapiro yells from the couch, "He's got a Costanza wallet." So it's like those weird sort of like you have those moments every once in a while. Like I grew up watching Andy Kaufman and Carl Reiner. Like, is this my life right now that I'm sitting in a chair next to Carl Reiner and George Shapiro's making fun of my wallet? How did this? What's the? I couldn't have charted the path that would get me there on purpose.
Hmm. What is a George Costanza wallet?
Well, it's a Seinfeld reference. It's just too much crap in your wallet, too many
Oh,
coppers.
I would be guilty of that myself.
He was, and Reiner was writing a lot of books at the time, and his publisher told me, look, because Reiner told me what he wanted me to get 2 rubber bands, and put my cash in one and my cards in the other, and that's it, and travel lightly. And if I managed to do that, his publisher wanted me to send him a photo of that, uh, and I may have wound up in one of Reiner's books as a success story, but I'm still it never happened because I couldn't tear myself away from my Costanza wallet.
Yeah, I prefer a wallet, I think, than just having my money in a rubber band. I think. I
Yeah.
don't think that seems like a good goal, but I don't
Well, I'm
know.
a pack rat. I mean, you can see all the stuff behind me on the shelves. I'm kind of a pack rat, anyways. But I did regret. I did feel like I let down Carl by by not changing my wallet
Right.
ways.
Well, it's never too late. Maybe
Yeah.
you could switch over to rubber bands here in the near future.
As a tribute that no one on Facebook will understand. It's a picture of my credit cards and my cash in two separate rubber bands.
Yeah. How has the rise of podcast affected stand up? Because a lot of stand up comedians have their own podcasts, and then they're on each other's podcasts.
I think that sometimes it might have a negative effect in that people might go on stage and talk like they would on a podcast and maybe don't necessarily develop the act, but I don't think that's necessarily widespread. I think podcasting and YouTube together had an effect that a lot of comics can talk directly to their audiences now, and maybe they're not as dependent on the gatekeepers that they might have been in the past to get into the clubs. Every once in a while, I will see somebody come up and play a 1,000 or 2,000 seat theater, and I'll think, oh, I might want to write a short preview of that, like that's something without an interview, just putting it in the calendar section. And I don't know what they would do on stage, so I can't necessarily write about it with authority because you'll have somebody, they have an Instagram account which is just them like walking around their house making fun of their cabinets or whatever they're sort of doing. And like, all right, well, that's funny, that's an amusing thing. How does that translate to the stage? So I think they're two completely different but complementary formats. Uh, because a podcast can make you popular. It helps your audience get to know you better. It can be very personal. It can allow you to tell people where you're going to be and allow you to develop a fanship in a city that you would have to previously you'd have to visit and work your way up from some small club and try to get a foothold so people know who you are. Uh, Now sometimes you can bypass that a little bit uh, if you get a popular podcast that spreads, that precedes you, so that people know who you are and can book you because they know you have a following already.
I heard a comedian recently say on their podcast that it used to, like, you can make he was like saying you can make like a good living now with a certain number of fans for your podcast because they'll
Mm.
travel around or whatever. As if
Yeah.
it used to be, you'd have to have those fans in each, like, market, each city or something.
Yeah, I mean, certainly if you're selling something to them or if you have advertising on your podcast, it's one. I mean, stand-up comedians have always been sort of the Swiss Army knife of entertainers. People would use them in advertising. Music shows would have them as MCs. You could do character acting work. There were always a few different options if you were good at what you did as a comedian, if you were memorable in some way, and podcasting seems to be sort of just adding to that tool belt of a way that you can make a living if you've got an idea that might resonate with people and you've got a little bit of a following already. You can push that idea out there and see if it spreads, especially if you've got fans who are willing to tell other fans what they like about this and how to find it. If you can make other fans into evangelists, you can that can be a very solid sort of plank in your career. Of course, you never want to you never want to come up with an idea based on it being a solid plank in your career, because then likely it won't mean anything. It'll probably be just something pandering or ambitious. So it's got to be something that a lot of people will relate to, or it'll resonate with enough people that it'll sort of spread on its own.
What's your take on even? I don't like to use the word woke, but for lack of a better term, I guess for people in stand up and people talk about stand up or comedy in general, talk about the rise of wokeness. Well, it hurts comedy. What is your take on that?
Well, I don't know that people will sometimes complain that comedians are too sensitive. I talked about this. I do a presentation on the history of Boston comedy, and I do a Q&A after, and somebody asked a similar question. There are people who will pander to a certain political preference, whether that's more left leaning or more right leaning, and you can find an audience that way. Uh, I don't necessarily think the comedians are too sensitive these days. By the way, what is the language rating on this podcast? Am I?
You can say whatever you want. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, because the the line that keeps coming up in my mind is the venerable Winston Zeddemore Jr. from Ghostbuster. I've seen shit out there that would turn you white. There's still people making transgressive comedy in the clubs and basically everywhere. I mean, you can the friction that we get to, I think, is mostly with social media, because anything that you say, you get that sort of, there's a mob mentality coming back at you on Twitter or Instagram. Everybody can sort of gang up, and then it looks like a lot of people think a certain way about what
Right.
you've done, when it's really
Like two people or something.
it,
Right.
it, it can just be it can just be two people. I mean, and also mostly when somebody complains about wokeism, it's a cringy word in and of itself.
I agree
Usually,
100%. Yeah.
usually what they mean is that something is too liberal, or
Yeah.
I don't know how you want to describe it. It's or too progressive, uh, and it seems like a code word for, I want to make fun of minorities, but I
Right.
can't nowadays because everyone's
Yeah. Poor
so
me. Yeah.
sensitive. Like, what?
Yeah.
Outing yourself. There, yeah. I mean, there's. I mean, comedy can be rough. You've got to decide how much you can stand. You've got to decide. I think about this all the time. What is the practical effect of somebody saying something horrendous on stage? I mean, there's a cumulative effect, and that's how it sort of comes to play in race and gender, I think, where one guy saying something misogynistic in a club, all right, if it was just that, then you just write that one guy off. But if it's a theme, if it's in a lot of comedy, if it's influencing the way people think, and then there's another difficulty you have there, talking about, is it influencing people? People have their own free will, they can do whatever they want. Yes, ideally, but there can be it can get to a point where you're reinforcing something that's not worth reinforcing, and some people think that they're being sort of a rebel by reinforcing what's the status quo in a lot of places. Uh, that just because somebody might take offense, that thing is worth saying, and that may or may not be true. You've got to sort of take everything on a sort of case
Right,
by
because
case
if you
effect.
a lot of times people who joke about a certain thing, it's not necessarily a joke about that. It's using something that's so extreme. That's the joke itself. Is like I would use something so extreme. Like I obviously don't think this. And most jokes
Yeah,
aren't like someone's actual, like a declarative statement.
yeah. Sometimes they are. Uh,
Right.
and,
Like you
and
said, it depends on each person. Or yeah.
I remember interviewing Patrice O'Neill years
Mhm.
ago, and he started this riff where he was trying to talk me out of my marriage, and I thought, oh, that's a funny riff. He does stuff like that about men and women in relationships all the time. But then, like 10 minutes in, I'm like, oh, he's really arguing for this. Like, hey, no, hey, I'm fine. I'm not gonna let's. And I mean, the interview was supposed to be out about a show called Web Junk too, and I don't think Patrice gave half a crap about the show necessarily. So I think he was trying to talk about something that was more interesting. But yeah, every once in a while, you do get uh, people who are serious about the thing that you think they're joking about, but most of the time it's the other way around.
Yeah. Patrice, very funny guy though. A lot
Oh,
of those people
yeah,
came out of the O&A world, very funny people, and all of them have gone in some strange directions. But yeah.
yeah. There are a lot of comics. There are a lot of those comics who are like the shock comics or uh, people from, especially from. I mean, the Opie and Anthony tour was called the Traveling Virus. They know the deal. They know what they were doing. But I do have to say, people like Jim Norton, who sort of has this sort of creepy persona on stage, anytime I've spoken with him, is a very sweet sort of guy. Uh,
Mhm.
and you'd be surprised sometimes. I interviewed um, Gilbert Gottfried once by phone, and somebody else answered, and they went and got him, and this voice came on, and it was, "Hello, this is Gilbert Gottfried," and I had to think for a minute, like, is somebody putting me on? Did I call the wrong number? And somebody said, "Hey, they're asking for Gilbert Gottfried." No, give me the phone. Give me the phone. And I asked him at one point, which seemed like sort of proof that this was actually Gottfried. I asked him, "Are people surprised when they hear your real voice?" And he said, "I think they're surprised I'm not a duck." Um, like, all right, so I feel better that this is actually Gilbert Gottfried now.
Yeah.
Yeah, people, especially in comedy, I think can. It's a weird sort of division. They can separate their stage self from their real self, but then again, a lot of the stuff that resonates has to be. It doesn't have to be, but is often something that's personal that means something to you. So it's, again, all that means is, if you're telling me this joke is offensive, I need to hear the joke. I need to
Mhm.
hear, and need to hear the context before I can judge
Right. You
any.
couldn't just like read it on paper. Almost any joke just written on paper would be like, "What the hell is wrong with this person?" But like you said, in
Yeah,
context.
yeah. I mean, the example that I brought up when somebody asked at the presentation about people being too sensitive and wokeism was, I've been listening to a lot of George Carlin again recently. It just makes me happy to revisit his stuff like once a year, and he had this giant riff on suicide, which is not a funny topic, but you can hear the challenge. Like, this is something that he knows people are going to freeze up about. So he went on the practical side of it was a lot of the routines. Like, well, you got to decide what day you're going to do it. Can't do it Tuesday because I'm taking Timmy to the circus. Can't do it Wednesday because I've got my massage appointment. Wednesday or Sunday, the folks are coming over. Sunday, like, he goes through the whole riff about, and then how would you do it? He said, "Well, I've got a rope in the garage, but it's got paint all over it, and I don't want to get that on my neck. Of course, I don't want to spend a lot of money on a rope uh, if I'm just going to die right afterwards. But then again, I can put it on a credit card. That's it. I'm going to hang myself, and Walmart's paying for it. Like that's like it's still uncomfortable, but
Yeah.
there are actual jokes and premises and an idea there that he's taking you to someplace uncomfortable, but he's also allowing you to laugh along the way. And some people think the joke is just mentioning the uncomfortable thing.
Right. Yeah. It's not necessarily a joke about that. It's like, oh,
Right.
suicide's hilarious, or right.
Yeah.
The do you have any thoughts on the AI George Carlin that came out recently?
I was atrocious. I listened to about 2 minutes of it. If I want to hear somebody do an impression of George Carlin, I'll go back to Todd Glass, who does a wonderful impression of George Carlin. The jokes are all now. It's come out now that a guy is taking credit for writing the thing, so it wasn't written by AI apparently, and I think that's partially a legal dodge, but we'll see how that's got to sort of shake out in court. It's there's there's no point to it. It's like George Carlin, the video game. Like if you got a bunch of people together to write what they think George Carlin would look like. And it's also very strange because the video of it is just AI art of George Carlin in front of audiences, and there's no real video to it. The writing's really bad. It's trying to ape the way he would attack a premise, and the comedy itself is terrible. I mean, maybe I didn't give it long enough. Maybe at minute 4 is when it gets really good. I'm doubting that,
Yeah.
but what I heard was not worth anyone's time and an insult to George Carlin's legacy.
Yeah, I mean, just the whole idea is like, I think the whole idea is awful to do for anyone, but like George Carlin especially seems like a really bad choice, and
Mm.
like the actual comedians were behind it, which you would think like that would be like blasphemy to them to like even like to attempt to do something like this. I don't really understand who it would appeal to.
Well, I think they're trying to figure out like a new market, a new thing to do that, just like we talked about trying to find a thing that resonates with people for your podcast. This is them trying to see what's marketable. And if I can't see them necessarily doing another one. Apparently, this is the second one they've done.
Oh, really?
The first AI. I tried to find it. I couldn't find the video of it, but I think it wasn't. I don't think it was AI of a known comic. I think they were just trying to create an AI comic. And that I don't know how well that went because I couldn't find the video of it. But I can't imagine, considering the reaction that this has gotten, that they'll go back to at least the idea of trying to make an AI special um, for a beloved comic. I mean, I guess it was a natural progression from all the hologram tours that we were seeing the last few years. There was going to be a Frank Zappa hologram tour. Where do you know the premise of
Yeah,
these?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and there was a Roy Orbison tour. There were a couple of others. I can't remember who else they did, but just trying to recreate these people instead of trying to do something yourself.
Yeah, and you could be influenced by those people. It's like instead of recreating them, like, oh, I'm gonna, because everyone's influenced by someone. Carlin was
Yeah,
influenced, and but he didn't just like I'm gonna be Lenny Bruce. I'm influenced by him.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. I mean, and oftentimes, even if you're trying really hard to imitate somebody else, I think a lot of people's signature styles probably came from them poorly imitating somebody else and
right.
accidentally finding who they are.
hmm Michael, I just got out of meeting and tuning in, but wanted to say hello. Nick rules.
Hey, Mike, how's it going?
Dave Deadman, I agree. There's a big difference between dark humor and just saying something shitty for the sake of being shitty.
Yeah.
I think that was that's a good way to put it instead of the big lung. But anyway,
Yeah,
uh,
I would agree.
yeah,
I mean, but then again, show me what you're talking about usually, and I'll tell you,
yeah,
not that you're seeking my approval for anything, but I've got to
right.
see it
And by the
before I.
way, the hologram tour totally ties into the Once and Future Smash, which today is the final day to help get the physical releases out there. And also, if you want like the double disc Blu-ray, it'll be for sale later on. But if you get one through the Kickstarter, it'll have a special slip disc or cover. So,
Yeah,
and there's
and
also a lot of cool other perks there.
yeah, don't forget the novelization. I think is also.
Yes, I'm excited about that. I'm hoping he does an audio version of this as well because I'm a big audiobook guy.
Oh yeah, yeah, I enjoyed that as well. That would
Yeah,
be fun.
I just like to make more work for Michael.
Yeah, let's think of let's think of 10 other things we can put on their plate. And
Yeah, but I need to find out what happens the last half hour of End Zone too. So I need to read the novel.
yeah, oh right, because the ending is actually in there.
Mm-hmm. That's the
That's a
very
question I never asked. What was it a conscious decision not to shoot the last half hour of that to make that sort of a mystery that people couldn't find, or was that a financial limitation that you were able to write into the.
yeah, I don't want to speak for Mike, but it's definitely the idea going in was the last half hour would be lost because that's also a running joke in Smash. And it's interesting because I don't give away much of the movie because it's a
Right,
lot of
right, right.
people just seen it at the festival, but it was a conscious decision.
Well, you've got two different kinds of movies that work very well together, and I think horror fans would enjoy both of them greatly.
Yeah, and those are the two funnest movies to watch with an audience are horror movies and comedies because
Yeah.
you interact together with them.
Well, it's sort of an aerobic workout. You laugh, or you gasp. You're sort of there's a physical reaction to both of those things, and one ratchet. Well, they both ratchet up tension, and one of them releases it, and the other doesn't. So it's sort of just what it does to you physically while you're watching it. If it's done really well, you can really feel like you've spent time with something.
Michael says it's always the premise and it's part of the plot. We wanted to keep the movie short so it could play as a double. That's also a good point.
Okay.
When we're sending out to the festivals, I was worried, because it's basically 2.5 hour runtime. If a lot of people would take it, and pleasantly surprised many did. So.
That's still only what 1/5 of the running time of Dune.
Very true, yeah. And there's not nearly as much sand in our movie.
Right, not nearly. There's a little because, just demographically, you want to play to the biggest audience, so you have to have sand.
Yeah, that is, yeah. When we're doing demo research, it's like the kids all love sand.
That would be great if you could infiltrate all of those questionnaires and all the market research and just put something random in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got all our results back, and it turns out everybody loves sand. Do we have anything in the works with sand right now?
That's a movie on its own. I like this.
Yeah.
This is a new mockumentary we can make.
Yeah, be like what is it? The Player, the Robert Altman movie with Tim Robbins.
Mm-hmm. So you're also touring with a lecture. So the lecture is a history of comedy in Boston.
Yeah, it's 100 years of Boston comedy going back to vaudeville days, like the B.F. Keith's Theater on Tremont Street in 1894 is opened and declared of vaudeville, theater, uh, which has reverberations down the line for the tenor of entertainment in America, uh, from then on. Vaudeville, radio, television, stand up in the clubs. There were a lot of people that came through the scene early on. Eva Tangway, the queen of vaudeville, came up in Holyoke. Fred Allen, who was a huge radio star for 17 years, um, was born uh, in Somerville. Although his one of the details in the lecture, I talk about how he was born. His family lived on a street that was the dividing line between Somerville and Cambridge. So he found out his birth certificate was in Cambridge later on when he went to look for it to do international travel. And he thinks that his dad was maybe a little bit drunk and went to the wrong city hall to file the birth certificate. You have people like Bob and Ray in radio, start out in WHDH in 1947. Bob Elliott is Chris Elliott's dad as well.
Oh, I shouldn't know
Um, on through the 50s, Lehrer and Rusty Warren, a sort of musical legacy. Bill Dana, Norm Crosby through the 70s, Jay Leno in the 70s, and then sort of the floodgates open up in the boom in the 80s. And you have Stephen Wright and Paula Poundstone and Jeanine Garofalo and Lenny Clark and Barry Crimmins and Tony V and all of these people. There are just an awful lot of people who have come through this scene or come up in this scene over the years, and I think people are surprised sometimes when just putting all the names together of people who have come through Boston.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really cool. So where can people find out where that's going to take place, like the tour?
I've got a Facebook page for 100 Years of Boston Comedy and 100yearsofbostoncomedy.com. Those are the two main places now people can find it.
All right, and I'll put the link on the website.
Oh, thank you.
Click it, yeah. And so you're launching. So you're gonna your radio online. Is that going to be like a podcast? Can you explain what that's going to be?
I'm launching hopefully April 1st. I'm working on trying to get everything together for it, and I've been working on it for several months. I'm going to be launching Boston Comedy Radio online. It'll be a 24/7, mostly automated radio station, but there will also be a podcast where I talk to stand-up performers, sketch, improv people, musicians, bookers, historians, and journalists about the history of Boston comedy. I'm sort of these last couple of years, I've been doubling and tripling down on Boston comedy, trying to chronicle the history of the scene, because I'm also writing a book on the same subject that I'm trying to get out there. I'm hoping it'll be a cumulative effect. Ooh, that's a fun word to try to say. A cumulative effect.
It is, yeah.
That people will sort of see the longer stretch of Boston comedy history when I'm done, and maybe that's something someone else can build on, that they'll sort of see where things come from, how many people came through here. They'll be able to hear it on the radio. They'll be able to see the lecture, and they'll be able to read the book for more detail.
That's cool. So I'm interested in that. That sounds, and it seems like it's something you're passionate about and knowledgeable about.
Yeah, it's I have a friend named Matt York who was doing a show called Highwaymen Songs and Stories about Johnny Cash, Waylon Jennings, Chris Christopherson, and that sort of that country super group from the 80s. And he was pushing me to do something, to find some way to go out and tour with the same sort of thing. And I was trying to figure out what it would be for comedy, and I was struggling with how, because I wouldn't be able to go up and perform the comedy, like he does the songs for this. So at one point, I've figured out, well, Fred Allen becomes popular around 1922, 1923. That's when he sort of becomes more of a national figure. That's 100 years. I can just cover that, and I can play people clips. Uh, there's a lot of Bob and Ray clips. If you take anything from the my talking about Boston comedy today, go find Bob and Ray clips and listen to them. They worked together for about 40 years. Yeah, because I think it was 1987 when Ray died, and they were still working for NPR doing shows up until like the year before that. Sorry, that
Nice.
was very rambling. I
Oh, it's
tend
fine. Yeah. Catherine Capazzi says hello.
Hello, how
She's
are you?
not just a Facebook user. That's actually Catherine.
I keep asking people questions when they've sent a message on Facebook. I realize that they can't say hello back when I say hi.
Oh, yeah. Well, she'll say hi back here eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you also have published some short horror stories.
A couple, yeah. It's the least sort of polished part of my writing career, but there's a really great horror community in New England that's very welcoming, uh, very nice people. Always willing to sort of help you. They're always sort of rooting for you to for the writing to work out. It's a very helpful and supportive horror writing community up here.
So we started off, saying you put out a Facebook post like, I would like to, write a horror song, a song for a horror movie at some point, and this is
Mm.
how it all came about. So, are you a horror movie fan?
Yep, horror movies and horror books. I'm a big fan, especially uh, uh, during the pandemic. I somehow hooked my wife Melissa into bad horror movie watching. Always sort of enjoyed it, and going back to like 2003 or something, I started to have more of an interest in it, going back and watching old horror movies, and then sort of Shaun of the Dead has been a favorite, and that sort of, I guess, pulled me back into being kind of a rabid horror fan.
So you said bad. What are some of your favorite, quote unquote, bad horror films?
Oh man, I'm not going to remember. I just saw. I'll go with what I saw this week. I just saw Galaxy of Terror
Oh yeah,
for the first time this week,
oh wow, yeah.
and
It's
that's
my
a
favorite giant space slug human sex scene in a film.
yeah. It's made the top 10 in that category, and for a lot of people, I think. But that's a what is it? Roger Corman. He's produced it. Somebody else directed it. I forget who, but that was a uh, a response, let's say, to Alien. They really wanted to Corman make really wanted to make an alien like film, and you could see that all over. But it also has its own kind of aesthetic.
Mm-hmm.
It's in trying to be all things to all people and trying to copy everything from something else. It wound up being kind of its own thing. It it looks it has its own look. There were some surprisingly good. I guess James Cameron did a lot of the effects, worked on that, and they picked his brain for that. And it was only what 3 or 4 years later he'd be directing Aliens, the sequel to it. So that I enjoy that kind of stuff where you see the inventiveness of, okay, we've got $4 and we need to make you believe that we're in space. What do we do? There was a great, I'm forgetting the name of it. There was a ultra low budget zombie movie. Uh, from England. It's a guy's name, and the conceit of it is that it is a zombie movie told from the zombies' point of view.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm
Do you
not
know
sure.
that one?
No.
Uh, I'll try to Google it while we're talking without pausing too much.
Yeah.
But it's you get this sort of you get a lot of the sounds that it hears, and you get to hear its victims. You get to hear uh, like there's one incredibly effective scene, I think, where a a mob of zombies breaks into a house, and you can see all the same things you'd see in a normal horror movie. Um, the people trying to escape, they're barricaded upstairs, but you don't get to see it doesn't flash to their perspective. You only see them from the perspective of this guy who was a human at the beginning of the movie and gets bit and turns into a zombie. Uh,
Dave saying, is it Colin?
yes, that's it. That's it.
Thanks, Dave.
I had Carl in my head, and I know that would be a stupid name for yes, 2008, Colin. Yeah, because Carl would be a very strange, uh, a little too avuncular a name for a zombie movie. But you hear the screams and the shouts from his point of view, where he is in this mob downstairs. You see the people fighting to get upstairs. It's that was a really effective scene for me. And I mean, they say that that was shot for like 26 bucks or something, but I guess somebody else has popped up and said, "Yeah, it was shot for that much money, but this guy's also an effects guy himself, and he called in a lot of favors for some things." But I don't know if I call that bad. It was definitely low budget. Um, there are a lot of 60s and 70s movies. Some of them I can't even name, because there's sometimes you watch this stuff streaming at 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
You wake up with this vague memory of having seen this weird.
And on Tubi, the films, they'll just just go to the next one, and you might not even what movie it is.
Yeah, I mean, and there are people who adore that aesthetic and make their own movies. Destroy All Neighbors on
Oh, I love that
right
movie.
now. So good.
Yeah, we just had a bunch of the cast on and the director.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
I know we're early in the year, but it's my favorite movie of the year so far.
It's so fun. Somebody mentioned afterwards that like it's a little light on plot, and I guess afterwards, I guess that's true, but I don't think that's what I was looking for in that movie. This is enough story to, and it's a glorious sort of.
Yeah, it's fun. It's over every character is fun. Uh and I was happy, like the homeless guy in it, like he pops up and I really
Yeah.
like him, and then like he becomes like a bigger character. I was like, oh, I I'm glad, because I really like that guy. And yeah, just everything about it I enjoyed. The look of it, the look of the apartment, just everything
Mhm.
about it. Even as soon as it started, the opening credits like had me hooked. I was like, oh, I like this.
Yeah, I enjoy. I also was somebody who didn't have cable as a kid, so there was a lot that I missed out on, including Joe Bob Briggs.
Hmm.
And that I ever since he came to Shutter, I've been able to see what he's all about, and I watch The Last Drive-In frequently, and I enjoy the idea of somebody who's a scholar of bad movies or weird movies at the very least, because it's probably they tend to get sort of dumped in together.
Yeah.
But I just saw another movie that scared the crap out of me as a kid. They were showing it at Cinema Salem in their Nightlight series, which is excellent. Surf Nazis Must Die.
Right.
Have you seen that?
Yeah. I haven't seen it for a long time, but it was one that I had watched when I was a kid a few times. Yeah.
Yeah. Me too, and I probably shouldn't have been allowed to see it uh, as a kid. I think also I saw it. Man, it must have been, I don't know, maybe 12 or 13. I saw it very young because it was the video store age,
Hmm.
which, when the thing you wanted wasn't in, you would get whatever was
Right.
new next. So so many movies would just come through the house that way, and Surf Nazis Must Die was one of them. And I think I thought as a kid that's what Los Angeles was. Um, like it,
That's
because I
why
think,
Michael and Sophia moved out there.
yeah, well, I
That's
mean,
what we're all about.
I think that movie and To Live and Die in LA came out around the same time. I'm like, I should never go to Los Angeles. If this is what Los Angeles is. I mean, I don't know when I was disabused of that notion, but I can say that I've been there several times since, and found it lovely in many regards.
Mhm. That's good. Yeah. I agree. Yeah, Surf Nazis Must Die is not, a great depiction of LA life.
No, well, I mean, it's supposed to be the post-apocalypse. I guess my 13-year-old self just sort of breezed over that and thought, "Wow, this is what it is right now." Like, well, no, it's
Maybe that explains Michael's mohawk. He's like, I got to get the mohawk before I go out here. I got to. So
as sort of
like,
a defensive posture, try to blend in. Well, the other thing about Surf Nazis Must Die, seeing it on the big screen, there's some wonderful cinematography in that, which seems like a very strange thing to say about a trauma film
Mhm.
about beach gangs.
Yeah.
Uh, but there's some. It just shows what you can do with with a little bit of concept, uh, some imagination, and some grunt work, because there's an Asian gang there, and they found this like pagoda on the beach somewhere that fits that brilliantly. There are some locations in that movie that are really and some shots. I mean, there are also a lot of like repeated shots uh, of the ocean, because I don't know how much
Was
of
actually
their
filmed.
budget they had
Yeah.
to be able to shoot in water. Um, but there are some really kind of beautiful scenes in that, which uh, something in my brain is resisting for some reason, saying, "Hey, there's some really beautiful scenes in Surf Nazis Must Die." Um, don't sleep on Trauma for Oscars in 1983, whenever that was made.
Mhm.
They got robbed.
A lot of people think it's a trauma movie, but it's actually one they bought and distributed.
Oh,
Didn't make it, kind of saved it from the video delete bin of cinema.
well, for that I am thankful, because I enjoyed it greatly.
Yeah,
See,
I actually did think it was a straight trauma movie too, so I didn't know that myself.
I think there was some Trauma branding on it when I saw it.
Yeah.
That's what made me
Hmm.
think that it's yeah, the is it okay to sort of plug Cinema Salem's
Yeah,
Nightlight?
of course. Yeah.
They show trailers before each one of them, and you get like a fake coin, and you get to vote. There are jars outside which one you want to see at Nightlight sometime in the future. So it's and there was another. Duh, I shouldn't even bring it up because I can't remember. But there was another trauma film that looked fantastic. I haven't seen a ton of trauma stuff. Um, I've seen a small handful full of trauma films, but I know there's an extensive library
Oh yeah, and
there
so many, lots of
to comb
people
through
who
should
went
I
on to
ever
do a lot of people,
make the
went
time.
on to do bigger things, came through trauma. So, but
Yeah.
I like a lot of the trauma stuff from that era. Hmm.
Yeah, is it
So
it's that seems like the golden era, the '80s. There was maybe the golden era of trauma films, would you say?
Yeah, I would say yeah. I don't want to insult anyone out there who
Mm.
likes Troma from the 2000s, but I mean, there's some gems, later ones like Poultrygeist. I think is fun.
I can't remember if I've seen that one. I'm a sucker uh for a lot of that kind of. Oh, I do remember one. There are a couple of really really bad ones. Melissa and I watched because somebody posted a picture of it. Shark Exorcist
Yes, yeah.
the other day. That I don't know why that came back up. That was an exceptionally terrible uh, film. There are a couple that I originally came from upstate New York, so I'm proud to claim Terror at Bloodfart Lake as uh, some people from my neck of the woods who made a very low budget entertaining. There is a lot of sort of winking at
So
tropes.
you're from
That,
Fartblood Lake.
yeah, well, Fart Blood Jake adjacent. Like we were,
Okay, fair enough.
we may have played them in soccer, uh, high school, and nobody ever wanted to play the Blood Fart Lake Trojans. They were tough and mean.
Yeah, I'd love to see their mascot.
Yeah, I felt a dumb sort of pride because I saw that on Amazon just looking through because I was looking through stuff like Velocipaster, which is
Which
a
that's actually a very good movie.
yes,
Honestly,
it's
Velocipaster.
very good. They will never acknowledge that the dinosaur was in the film. It's never you don't get like the wink that our dinosaur is the thing that you bought at Party City, the inflatable costume, and Spaghetti Man, which was it's I guess technically a superhero film, but I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's
No. I actually saw the I saw the star of Velocipaster. He was at our US premiere in LA, but and that's very cool to me, but I didn't know who to tell. Like, hey, that's the guy, that's the lead from Velocipaster. He's
I
Pastor.
love that.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that there'll be a sequel at some point, but that terror at Bloodfart Lake was I think I think because I watched Spaghetti Man and Velocipaster, Amazon said, "Hey, you might like this." Like, and I only found out afterwards that it was made up in upstate New York. I'm like, "Hey, it's my people." But I don't know. It's a civic pride is kind of silly as a concept to begin with, but
Mhm.
I'll apply it here. It's as well applied to
Yeah, I
have
don't. I not to my knowledge, I don't know of any movies that were filmed in Sandwich, Massachusetts. I don't have any. There's probably something, but none that come to
probably
mind.
maybe there might have been a cutscene from Winter Beast.
Maybe so. Maybe so.
Let me make sure I've got the title Winter Beast correct. Uh,
I am
that's
curious to watch this now.
it's a well. I mean, there are yeah. It is Winter Beast. I think it's yeah. Video 1992. Some of it I think was shot on film, and I think some of it was shot on video. And there are certain places where they've used claymation to show the
Really?
evil things, which is kind of a cool look. There was almost something Evil Dead like about the claymation, although it was nowhere near as sophisticated as Raimi was able
Yeah. I
to do.
love claymation, so that's like, it's claymation in Basket Case. That seems really out of place, but I
Yeah,
love that that it's in the movie. Yeah.
it shows up in the 80s every once in a while. What because of the California raisins or something, it like in Better Off Dead. There's the everybody wants some scene where there's like a dancing waffle singing David Lee Roth. You remember that? Do you remember?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Every once in a while there would just be a scene in an 80s movie where it's just, hey,
Right.
we had an extra $400,
Yeah.
so you get this scene, this claymation scene.
Yeah, and there's some claymation in the Once and Future Smash to bring this all
Right,
back together.
right. Oh, yes, there is.
Made by Sophia Cassiola.
Yes, it's the wonderful. I had not expected to see that in the movie when it came up. It was fun to see.
Yeah, yeah, I didn't either, and I was, involved in in the movie, but yeah, it was very cool. So once the feature smash End Zone 2, you can help out the Kickstarter. Today's the last day. There's I don't know 8 hours or something left, so very happy that people have got together to help get the movie out there. I'm glad people want to see it or see it again if they saw it at a festival. And I really love, not just because I'm part of the movie, but I love your songs in the movie. A Guy Like Smash and Long Dead. And I would like to check out some of
Oh,
your
thank you.
other music.
Oh yeah, I'm on Bandcamp, and that's mainly where I am. I'm on Facebook and all the social medias, but just under Nick Zaino on Bandcamp. You can find my other stuff. I still need to get my chops up to play A Guy Like Smash live. I wonder if
Oh,
I
that
should,
would be amazing.
like
Yeah.
in the middle of a show, just play that. It's so it doesn't necessarily sound like anything else I do, so it might be fun to drop it in and not tell anybody a single thing about it.
I love that idea. I'd love to be there and record that and see what people's reaction is.
Yeah, I have played Long Dead as an electric version
Oh, really?
of it, and somebody said that it sounded like Pink Floyd when I play it.
Oh, well, I think that's a good compliment.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's weird to sing it in front of people because the lyrics were kind of made to be a little bit silly,
Mm-hmm.
and then you see people like in the audience like, like oh, they that are sort of contemplating it.
Yeah, I
But
love it.
there's some very silly lines.
Yeah.
They're silly to me. I don't know that people even can hear what I'm singing. They just hear the minor chord brooding of it and react to that.
So a horror show, but I am also interested in your comedy stuff, and I'd like to check out your site when it pops up.
Oh yeah, 100 years of comedy, 100 years of BostonComedy.com. That's the site for
And then
and
then
Boston.
you'll have a podcast eventually popping up here, the Boston Comedy Radio Online.
Yep, yeah, all that. Yeah, BostonComedyRadio.com will be the eventual home of that. I don't have that sort of hooked up to a site yet. That's what I'm doing now. But thanks for asking about that stuff. I know that the focus should be on Once and Future Smash.
Well, I like to talk about everything that you're involved in.
But thanks for asking. I appreciate that. I hope people are interested in that, find some enjoyment in it.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you coming on.
Well, thank you very much for having me. The whole experience was just really fun to step into somebody else's shoes to write songs as a different person. And when I first heard the songs in the movie, I let out it was a little cheer that said, "Hey, that's my stuff up there on a," in a movie. Somebody else put, my stuff in the background of their images.
No, it works. It's great. I can't imagine something else in there, and there's a group effort, and yeah, I love your involvement.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, and it would be cool to talk with you again sometime.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, let me know.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to play the trailer for End Zone 2 for people who haven't seen it yet. Although if they follow the show, I've probably played it many times, but we're going to play it again here, and we'll talk to everybody again. Bye.
Bye.
In 1955, the George Donner High School football team lost the big game. They beat freshman Jimmy Smazmov until he was hardly recognizable.
You people broke his goddamn jaw! Can't even eat like a regular person!
But Jimmy recovered. Jimmy Smazmov became Smash Mouth and got his revenge.
Did they ever find Jimmy?
Who, Smash Mouth? He died in the fire.
I heard they never found his body.
Now, 15 years later,
It's really nice to be here with you, Nancy. We missed you.
We should just have some fun. We deserve it. I've been coming out here for years. I've never seen that before.
What in tarnation?
You guys remember AJ? Him and Jimmy were always hanging out together, right?
Jimmy was like my brother. I kept him safe.
Smash Mouth is back.
Do you still have a thing for him?
Jimmy, it's me. It's me, Nancy.
This time, the cheerleaders who stopped him
I still remember the knife going into her.
will face their greatest fears.
You will know pain and suffering and blood.
Don't close your eyes. Don't cover your ears. And whatever you do, don't open your mouth. In Zone 2, get smashed.